Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar on the Athena Tracker. So I know people are just getting logged in and a lot of people have said they can't make it. So we will record the session and share it with everyone who's asked for that afterwards. So just to introduce myself, I'm Emily Brick. I founded Athena Analytics back in 2017. And initially the company was, I know a lot of you have heard this, so I do apologize, but very quickly, initially the company was we did reports for schools on the junior and leaving cert, which we still do today. But through that work, we got to working with schools, and a lot of feedback we got was that students were looking for an academic tracking tool, which is what has grown into the Athena Tracker. And I suppose when it started off initially, that was very much work with principals and deputy principals. They were looking at all these spreadsheets that they were trying to convert into software, which is where the software came from. I should mention that one of the principals was Martina Donlan from Fingal Community College, which is Máirin's school. So Martina was one of the initial schools that piloted the software when it looked very different to what it does today. So she was one of the schools that made it possible to do this. So through the what evolved from this was it went from the principals and the deputies leading it in a lot of schools to it being a post holder's responsibility, that has really come out, especially in the last year. And so we've decided to do these series of webinars where we're talking to different post holders about what that looks like in their schools, and that's why we're here today. So I'd like to welcome Mairin Brady from Fingal Community College and Adrian Desmond from Midleton CBS, who are going to chat to us today about how they're using the Athena Tracker in their schools. Máirín, I might just start with you. Welcome. Do you want to maybe introduce yourself and tell us about your role in the school?
Yeah, hi, I'm Mairin Brady here. As Emily mentioned, I work in Fingal Community College in Swords. I am a maths teacher. I teach economics to transition year students as well. I'm an AP1 holder, and under that remit, I'm responsible for academic tracking as well as school development planning. So that's a little brief introduction to me.
Brilliant. Thanks, Máirín. And Adrian?
Yeah, my name is Adrian Desmond. I'm working in Midleton CBS in Cork, and I'm an accounting and business teacher. And we had a new post created last year, academic tracking, and I was assigned that post. So obviously Athena is a huge part of the post then, under academic tracking.
Brilliant. And I suppose, you both have maths backgrounds, and one of the fears we get from people around taking on this post is, do I need to be very mathsy to do it? So would you feel that is something that's important in taking on this role? Adrian, maybe I'll come to you first.
I do and I don't. One thing that happened with us in the school was, like, my maths brain did kick in straight away, and I was, at meetings with the senior management, and I was saying, we need to get through the numbers, debit, credit, kind of almost everything needs to balance and all that. But our deputy principal here, Tracy Groom, she's from an English background, and she was saying, no, we really need to focus more in on the student and, calming this down, having a good conversation with them and kind of maximizing it. So, I suppose we all bring different skill sets to it, but I suppose having a few voices in it was definitely good. And when I do look back, it's definitely, when we have a chat to the students here and go a bit deeper, it's a lot more beneficial.
Brilliant. And Máirín, would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. When I first started kind of playing around with the tool, it drove me a bit insane. And I think part of me was trying to figure out the maths behind it maybe. But, when you take a step back and just use it as, I think, what it's intended, it's a net that catches students who might otherwise fall under the radar. And certainly that's how we're approaching it. We're using it as a tool to help us support students that might not be highlighted as easily as being in need of support. So I think the fact that I am a maths teacher maybe definitely helps me with spreadsheets and things like that, but I don't think it's a compulsory requirement.
Brilliant, thanks. I should have said at the start that if anyone needs to ask a question, you can do it in the question section there, but just if you can uncheck answer anonymously, because if we don't get you, then we can respond to you afterwards. Máirín, maybe can you talk us through how you took on this role in the school, and where how you incorporated it into your post holding role, like?
Yeah, of course. So I was on leave for a lot of last year, and when I came back last April, my principal, Máirín Brady, asked me to take a look at tracking. And she kind of gave me a bit of autonomy to decide what way I wanted to approach it myself. So I kind of chatted to herself, the guidance counsellor, year heads, etc. And between us, we all came up with a bit of a plan. So I kind of use the expectation summary, the exam summary, sorry, function quite a bit. And then, so after house exams, I create a list of students and where they are in line with their potential. And then we kind of, we have certain triggers. So if a student is maybe a little bit below potential in 1 or 2 subjects, we leave that at teacher level, but 3 or more subjects we would meet to discuss that student. So I create a list, I meet with the year head, the AEN coordinator, and then other personnel as necessary. So I suppose part of my role is to facilitate those meetings, and but also to promote the use of Athena across the school. So we're trying to get teachers to use it in their own classrooms. So a huge part of my role has been just promoting it and training staff on how to use it.
Brilliant. And how often would those meetings happen where you're reviewing the expectation summary and highlighting those students below in more than 3 subjects?
Well, we definitely have at least one a term. It's looking like kind of one a term. If we could do them more often, that would be great. But for, following that initial meeting, we then decide on what interventions are appropriate. So I might meet them with form tutors or with the assistant year head. Part of the assistant year head role is taking on kind of mentoring students that are highlighted in those meetings. And we're definitely taking a holistic approach. So I suppose there's lots of little smaller meetings that happen. And of course, then we meet with students themselves as appropriate.
Brilliant. Yeah. And I suppose like within the expectation summary, you are only going to see that once a term, when the term exams happen, there's only going to be new information there then. And, the whole goal with the tracker is that it's, realistic in terms of the time that it's going to take for you and everybody involved. So, that sounds like you have a lot comes after the term exam and a lot filters down. So it sounds brilliant.
Yeah, we have continuous assessments that go up onto it as well. But if we pulled up students based on each kind of separate assessment, the list tends to change quite a bit. So we have an overall look at the student at least once a term.
Brilliant. Yeah, sounds brilliant. And Adrian, how about you? How did you start in terms of using the Athena Tracker, and how do you incorporate it into your role?
I suppose the way we started, Emily, first was it was a bit of firefighting. A lot of people were referred to us from year heads and deputy principals, and it just that was the big change that has happened to us throughout the year. I suppose we would then meet the students, refer back. You might have parental phone calls, all of that, but I suppose it always again felt like firefighting. We weren't really on the front foot with it. So the management have been great here. They've given us some, extra resources, and we've got now 6 teachers who might have, 1, 2, 3 periods a week to work on Athena, and they meet the students. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get through all the student year groups. So from 2nd to 6th years, we leave the first years alone, and we're meeting them, going through them by class. And we call in each of the students individually. I suppose at the start, we go up to the tutor class, we explain what Athena is, we have these kind of appointment cards then that the tutor will give them, and they'll come down to us every 15 minutes during PE. And we have our discussion with them then, and that's where we set up the targets. Obviously, if there's anything that really stands out with their data, we can refer it back to the year heads as well. And we've an in-depth conversation with them then about, kind of study skills. Or career guidance gave us some links to study skills. So we go through that as well, their study skills. And we're always trying to, enforce that, they'll probably become better studiers in the future. And if they can learn those skills now, and they do tend to get a lot out of the, building it up a bit more, and putting a bit of meat on just the data. We set the targets, but we try to add a bit more onto it then as well. And we're trying to get through the school throughout this year. We're trying to have targets set for all the students in the school, have a meeting with all the students in the school. And I suppose that's where we're at the moment. But it couldn't have happened if we didn't have support from management on it, because there's 950 kids in the school, and meeting them all would be impossible. So it's allowing us to get a bit deeper into the school with Athena. So yeah, I suppose that's where we're at the moment.
Brilliant. And like, I mean, a lot of people who are bringing it in ask, how should we go about setting the targets? Should it be guidance do it? Should it be the year heads? So you have 6 teachers specifically assigned to lead with academic tracking. They're not necessarily teaching the students they're meeting with, or year heads or anything like that?
No, yeah, they were just assigned at the start of the year. Maybe there was, a time, they might have needed a class or 2 filled. But I suppose in August, I would have met with all the those 6 teachers, and we would have kind of went through the process in a bit of detail. And like, we pop everything into a Google Drive now as well. So like, there's a whole process that we go through with each student. And in particularly at the start, you might be missing, you might just get a bit lost on the software, and this really helps the teachers get up to speed with it. And we tick them all off. And I suppose from my point of view as well, that then I was able to get on to Frank and just, who's my line manager in Athena, and just say, like, is this process okay? Because, you're a bit by yourself with Athena sometimes in a school, and I didn't want to be going down a rabbit hole with it either. So Frank just took a few days that it got back to me, said it was all good. So it did really, the feedback from those 6 teachers, that it did really help at the start. Like, I doubt they look at it all anymore, but just getting everyone up to speed. And like, there's great supports on the Athena website now, but this was really specific to what we wanted to do and within our school. And you've 1,000 things to do there, and the end of August, start of September. So this really just allowed us to get started with that.
Brilliant. And it sounds like you've a really good process set up with it. And like, that's interesting that you're going through it with each year except the first years. Have you found there's a big difference between the different years in terms of their reaction to it?
Possibly, but slight. Like, I did before this meeting, now I was trying to get a bit of feedback, because we've just been starting it since September. And like, 6th years, I went into 6th year class and was asking them, look, did you find this beneficial? Like, there's no problem. And 100% of them put up their hands saying they found it very good, so that was great. Then I went into the 2nd year classes, and like, there was maybe 1 or 2 students that didn't put up their hands. So there's not huge differences either at the lads. And I think in particular, it is just the time we give them. They do like it. They like that somebody kind of is focusing in on them and, taking a look at their results. And obviously there's a bit of passing the baton over to them, like they have to take ownership of it too, but we're getting a very positive reaction generally across the board.
Brilliant. And Máirín, just to clear up something, you said you review the expectation summary. Do you do that with all year groups or just specific year groups?
Yeah, except for first year and transition years currently. So I've done it with 2nd, 3rd, 5th and 6th so far.
Brilliant. And so, like, are there any areas in particular where you find the Athena Tracker useful? Máirín, I'll go to you first, or any particular situations when you found, okay, that's really useful that I have this in this situation.
Yeah, I suppose we found it particularly, it's quite easy to pick up on students who are struggling, I think, who are failing exams and things like that, but kids that are doing okay, but just not achieving their potential. I think that's where it's made the most impact for us. Definitely the year heads would have felt that after meeting with them, that we'd discussed maybe students who weren't on their radar. Good students who are behaving well and who are doing okay in their exams, but Athena had flagged as kind of maybe were in need of a little bit more support. And those students, a bit like what Adrian said, like, they're delighted to have the conversation with you. And I think for them to see the visuals has a massive impact also. And then I think in terms of staff, one of the ways my colleagues have found it really useful is at parent-teacher meetings. So the parents really, we only had about 5 or 6 staff using it at the last parent-teacher meeting, but they all had such positive feedback, and we're kind of spreading the word. So I'm really hopeful. We've got 6th year parent-teacher meetings next year, and I think quite a few staff members are going to use it there, because the parents found that just the graph, the trend graph, they found that so useful to see patterns and trends.
Brilliant. Yeah. I mean, for the parent-teacher meeting, like, a lot of the feedback we get is that, it allows you to, gives you that objective data that, you can start the conversation on, rather than everything being subjective, And I'll stick with you, Maureen. Do you have any examples of, students, in particular that you feel like this has had an impact on?
Yeah, last April and May, I was looking at some students who actually went on to be diagnosed with additional educational needs. There was I think 3 students who were flagged kind of as a result of Athena. Now they may well have been flagged anyway, but I think this might have speeded things up for them a little bit. So when we were looking at the results and we were trying to figure out what wasn't working for them, I would have referred them on to the AEN coordinator, who then carried out some assessment, and 3 students that I know of anyway have received formal diagnosis. So I think that's really helpful, just catching those students who might just go under the radar otherwise. And then I suppose, as you say, time will tell with other students. But it was nice to see when I look back in this term that some of the students who were on my list last term have, their grades have improved and they seem to be doing a bit better this time around. So hopefully that trend will continue.
Yeah, brilliant. I suppose the goal is that, the same students aren't going to be on your list each time you check. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And Adrian, what about you? Do you have any, I know you're a bit newer to it, but do you have any examples of, students you feel like it has had an impact on?
Well, probably similar to Maureen. There are students that were referred to us that when we looked at the results then, but they would have been referred on to AEN, and there was, needs diagnosed there. So, but again, it probably wasn't just directly Athena. But what I find where we're at is, like, again, we've been meeting the students now, but, after the 3rd and 6th year November tests that have just gone online, I've been talking to my deputy principal, and like Maureen said there, now we're going looking at the students who did really underperform and also outperform. So we'll be able to kind of identify those students, and that's something we wouldn't have necessarily done with the program in the past, but it's going to hopefully in the future help us intervene more where and directly from the computer software program, like from our Athena, in students that maybe need it. So yeah, that's where I see it in the future.
Brilliant. And like, this question is relevant to both of you, but Maureen, I'll just come to you on it. You're both quite big schools, do you think there's anything in particular, that, the Athena Tracker is useful for bigger schools? Yeah.
I suppose one thing that's just coming to mind straight away is, unfortunately, we would have always had continuity of teachers where possible. So if I took a group up in 1st year, I'd go with them all the way up to 6th year. And just with teacher shortages at the moment and the huge transition in teachers, that's not happening as often. So I know definitely teachers have commented on how helpful it is that they can log into Athena with their 5th year student that they've just picked up this year and be able to see all the results back as far as 1st year. So that's definitely been a huge help, particularly in a big school where we don't know the students as well if we haven't had them for the previous academic year.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I know that's true for a lot of schools. And Adrian, sorry, I probably should ask you though, because I know your school has grown. So, is this something you think is more useful now than it might have been for you a few years ago when you were smaller?
Yeah, I suppose, you just with a smaller school, you are more in touch with the students. There was a stage in my school where I knew every student's name, but obviously we've grown massively in about 9 years there, from about 550 to 950 students. And you like Maureen said there, it can be really handy when you're picking up a class in 5th year, just seeing the students, that you're dealing with and where you're aiming at. And also the huge thing, like, we're all boys, and there, I think there was some research done that, like, in the 36 subjects in the Leaving Cert, girls outperformed boys in 28 of them or something. So boys, there's this huge area we find in the middle, and that's how we find Athena so helpful to really kind of promote their academics and catch the students that are just drifting along. And again, the numbers being so big, it allows us to spot those students a lot easier. And yeah, like, we're all boys schools, like, we're in a real hurling area, and they just think about hurling all day long, and then girls the rest of the time. So we're just trying to squeeze a bit of academics in there as well, and get them aware of it. And I think you said it there a moment ago, starting the conversation and trying to, just focus in their attention a bit. And it kind of builds out from there then as well, where kind of the parents are really aware of Athena going on, and, they talk to their sons about it then, and other stakeholders, the tutors are getting more involved in it the year ahead. So it really is starting to build out.
Brilliant. That's great to hear. And so for both of you, like, which of the trainings, or did you avail of any of the trainings we offer? Máirín, I'll come to you first.
I watched all the videos on the website. So I suppose, first of all, there's videos where you interviewed principals and deputy principals from schools that were using it. So I stalked those to get ideas. And then I had a look at some of the inspection reports for those schools to see whether there was any recommendations made in those. That would have been kind of when I was first looking at it. And then I used all the videos that you have you have PDFs of them as well. They're really, really helpful. And then I attended one of these webinars and just talked to other people who were using it in their schools. A few of my friends had it in their schools, so I was chatting to them about it as well. And I'm booked to go on the super user training. I think it's the 4th of December or 5th, is it? 5th of December, I think.
Yeah, next Tuesday, I think. Yeah. Brilliant.
I'm really looking forward to that, because even listening to Adrian and his approach, it's a little bit different to how we're doing things, and you just pick up so many brilliant ideas.
Yeah, because I think that's, what you said is so important, that learning from other people using it, because, we were very much driven to build this by, feedback from schools saying this is what we want. But the way you have, even both of you and all the other schools using it have implemented it, we could never have come up with that for you, you know better. So I think learning from other schools is really important. Adrian, what about you? Did you do any of the trainings?
I did, yeah. Just I was watching the videos you have up as well, which were great. And then I did the super user training last year. I think it was the 3rd of December last year. So that was excellent. And then I watched the previous webinar as well with the other post holders. But just at the super user training I asked Teresa in Athena, could I get their email addresses? And we've tried to start a bit of just a group that you can bounce a few ideas off what they're doing in other schools as well, and just having a bit of a local network is handy, because again, you're the only person, and it's good to bounce ideas off them. And like Máirín, listening to Máirín there, it's fantastic. I'm taking notes on what she's saying, so things they're doing that I just didn't think of, and I suppose that's the way with anything when you're doing it by yourself. A few other voices is great.
Brilliant, yeah. And so I suppose for people taking on this role in schools, one of the big fears is, implementing it throughout the school, or even, when management are bringing it in, how to bring it in throughout school. And our general advice would be, to start with your super user like yourselves, then, maybe train up year heads or a couple of important people using it around the school, and then slowly roll it out. How has the rollout from yourselves outwards gone for you? Máirín, I might come to you first. Just, in terms of other staff using it.
So we have, as you mentioned, Martina was one of the first to get involved in it. And so we've had Athena for a long time, and we did have training a few years ago. I think it might have been yourself, Emily, I'm not sure. Somebody zoomed into us on a call, and we were all in the computer rooms and got logged on. And I have to put my hand up and say that even though I logged in that day and just never really came back to it, I think COVID got in the way. I'm going to use that as my excuse anyway. So I suppose for us, for me, one of the big things was just to get teachers to log in. Because I found once I logged in and played around with it, I was like, this is amazing. So that was a huge thing for me, just to get teachers to log into it and to look at it and see what was on offer and what they could use it for themselves. Meeting with the yearheads definitely helped drive it with them, because they could then see the value of it and the importance of it. So they're using it now. When they phone home, they're logging into Athena first and having a quick look at the data on Athena and that kind of thing. And in terms of teachers' individual practice, I think word is spreading. I got a few quotes from teachers who used it at parent-teacher meeting, and I've just sent a little promo out kind of to promote it before next year's parent teacher meeting. So I think I do think it's good to have the super user and it's good to have management, but for me, I felt it was also important to try and build a bit of momentum at classroom teacher level as well. Slowly, slow and steady.
Yeah, brilliant. And Adrian, what about you? How have you approached rolling it out to other staff members?
I suppose just ours did go differently, having the 6 core teachers, I suppose, that were using the program at the start of the year. But I find that has been so helpful. It's built a team of people kind of who really, you know, have found it very positive to use in school, you know. So they kind of go out then to other people, and we're probably a bit behind Máirín School just in terms of we're maybe thinking of going to a staff meeting in February and kind of rolling it out from there to the class tutors, and they'll be able to follow up then on the targets, you know, that we've set and see how students are doing, how they're getting on. And also, I suppose the students will be more aware of it then as well. They won't be starting from scratch, so they'll be ready to build on the conversation they hopefully had in the first meeting with us, and we hope to grow more that way. And at the same staff meeting, you know, we'll talk to class teachers, our subject teachers as well about it. And like, it's not that teachers in our school aren't using it. Our maths department are all over it, but maybe just across the school, it's a bit hit and miss. You know, you've some teachers, like our maths department, are complete nerds. They harass me. I try to avoid them in the staff room at this stage because they're just always asking questions. So, you know, but I suppose the plan is to get it out. The tutors next, you know, we've a huge amount of tutors in the school. That'd be another layer to it. And then subject teachers, and like Máirín said there, you know, like we're not at the stage really where teachers are using it in parent-teacher meetings, but maybe down the line, maybe this time next year, you know. And the one fear I suppose I did have with it is that, you know, if day one, I kind of just a staff meeting in August, we were talking about Athena and like everyone has to use it now, and, you know, there's initiative overload in schools, you know, everyone knows that, and like nobody really took it on board, and it was just something that was a head wreck in the background for teachers. You know, I could see how Athena could be lost in schools as well and just fade away. So I do think building a bit of a core team is good, and, you know, working it out from the centre.
Yeah, I think you're both so right. You know, that step-by-step approach is so important. And Máirín, I think your school is a good example of it, where you had it at the start, you were all shown it, and really there was no process behind it. So none of you really used it, but now, you know, it's very much being integrated into the school, which is great.
It's funny listening to Adrian saying, I think we're a bit behind Máirín School, because I was sitting here feeling the same way that I was behind Adrian's school. I think there's no one size fits all, and probably whatever approach you take, you'll build on it. Like, the tool is so valuable that I think once you get one thing up and running, you'll want to feed it into another area. So like, I'd hope that next year we'll have form tutors and a more structured approach like what Adrian has started with. So, you know, I think it probably doesn't really matter what route you go down, the role will grow and you'll adapt as time passes, I suppose.
Yeah, great point. There's no one size fits all with it. Yeah, definitely. And Adrian, I should say, if you're being harassed by any of your staff about this, you can just send them directly to us. We can deal with them. That's fine. That's what
your phone number.
So something that comes up a lot, you know, people bringing this into the school, you know, there's generally 2 people who contact us and bring it in. It's either school management, they want it brought in, and then they're afterwards going to select someone to lead it in the school, or else, you know, the academic people who've been given this post then research tools, and they find the Athena Tracker, they contact us, and then they kind of convince management of it and they bring it in. So I suppose, Máirín, we know your situation. Martina has had it with years and she's finally found you, and I'd say she's delighted. Adrian, what about you? You know, who brought it into the school and who was initially leading it?
Well, I suppose ours would kind of go back to, we had a needs analysis review within our school, and again, you know, just the boys, I suppose, I know I keep on about this, but from, like, we do see with a big boy school that you can have a lot of lads in the middle, and one of the most you know, significant needs we found was, you know, maintaining academic standards, like you said, as we grew as well. And you know, you're taking in a different cohort as well, and trying to manage all that growth, maintaining academic performance, and was seen as a significant need. And then our deputy principal, Tracy Groom, she went really after it, sourcing the program, setting up the training, and then, you know, deputy principals, you know, the amount of work they have to do. So that's where the post then came up. We did a post review. Last year, we finished a post review last year, and this was seen as a role, and that's how, you know, the management approached me with it. We were all moved around, so I was moved into this position then.
Okay, you know, that's great to hear, because I mean, I know there are a lot of people who have just signed up and they're trying to figure out who to give it to, or and how they should go about that. So that's good to hear. So I know for a lot of people, a lot of post holders, this might be the entirety of the role, whereas for others, it's just an aspect of it. So how does it work for you? Would it be the entirety of your role? Adrian, I'll come back to you.
No, there's other parts to it as well. I suppose the role can be a bit of a blank canvas, you know, because it's a new position. So we do study skill sessions now. There's a mentoring program just starting. We're trying to get guest speakers into as well, you know, talk to the students who are really, you know, knocking it out of the park, flying all together. And like, I'm not... like our deputy principals now are involved in the study sessions, and guidance are involved, but we're linking in with them at every level we can. So there's more to the role, definitely, and it's growing and growing. And but definitely Athena is really, you know, it's a huge part of it, you know, meeting the students and all that. It is a huge part of it. So I'm trying to manage how much it grows as well. I don't want it to grow too much, just get a bit of balance with it. So that, you know, it's, yeah, but Athena is at the heart of it.
Very good. And Máirín, what about you?
Yeah, similar to what Adrian said there, Athena is definitely at the heart of my role as academic tracking coordinator. I have other responsibilities as well, so I suppose my time is a bit limited. But yeah, I suppose anytime I'm doing anything to do with tracking, Athena is open and I'm logged in and I'm checking things on it. So it definitely is a huge factor of my role.
Very good. Yeah, thanks. And I mean, so I think you both have kind of answered this, but in terms of showing this to parents, some schools are nervous at that stage, we'll say. How has that gone for you? You know, Máirín, I suppose you've used it in some parent-teacher meetings and you've said that's gone well. Any kind of specific feedback you've had or anything?
Yeah, so I used it myself for the first time at a parent-teacher meeting, and I just found it brilliant. It just helped the conversation flow so well. You know, if you were trying to show a parent how, you know, instead of talking to them about the child's attainment in the subject, you could nearly just show them it, you know, and they could see the graph. My slight hesitation or concern, I suppose, was just GDPR, you know, just being careful. So I just turned my Chromebook away, you know, logged into the student and turned it around for the parents. So I was just extra cautious with that. Parents were really interested in it. They, you know, they were really positive about it, and we're actually going to survey some of the parents after the next parent-teacher meeting to find, you know, to hear from their own voices, I suppose, how they found it. Students found it really useful. I asked my own class, and a few other teachers asked their students, and they all had really positive things to say. And then the teachers who used it all said they definitely use it again at a parent-teacher meeting. So I do think people can be a little bit nervous about these things, but even if you try it with one or two parents and see how it goes, you know, you don't have to commit to using it with every parent at the parent-teacher meeting. But I'd say for most people, if they try it, they'll continue to use it. It's really positive.
Yeah, and like I think, as I said, you know, it's good to have that objective data to have the conversation around with the parents. So like, I suppose, you know, you've both been very positive about everything, but you know, I suppose what people probably want to hear is like, what has been the challenging parts of your role? So Adrian, I might come to you first. What have you found most challenging about leading this in the school?
Just at the start, I suppose, like I was saying, it's a blank canvas, but you know, that can be a positive and a negative as well. You know, it felt like a tidal wave hit me at the start. I didn't know anything about Athena at the start, and suddenly I was given this post, and you know, you've staff up to the whole time. What's the story with Athena now? You know, and you're kind of definitely a bit overwhelmed with it, but. The challenge, that was one challenge, and the other, I suppose, you are using a lot of different skills. You know, there is the technical skill, and like it's for anyone listening, it's not too much, but the odd time when there is a challenge in it, you know, you have to kind of go to the program and be patient with it and figure it out, and then you're you're dealing with different stakeholders all the time. You might be ringing parents, you talking to your senior management, you know, talking to students all the time, tutors. So, you know, there's a lot of communication with it. And I did find that at the start of the year, in August in particular, as we were setting up the process and the systems, you know, there was that organization kind of side to it as well. And I suppose even today, you know, where I'm presenting, I'll be presenting at a staff meeting after Christmas, and you know that's not everyone's cup of tea as well. You know, you could be a bit nervous and all that. So those kind of variety of skills, and maybe that you're on your own in a school, you're not really, you know what I mean. But like you're the one that's leading it. Sometimes if you're a year ahead, you've 6 other year heads, and you can chat to them. You know, you're having meetings with your DPs the whole time, whereas with Athena or some of these other roles in schools, you can be a bit off by yourself. So I think it's good to build up kind of contacts around that. And, you know, like I was saying about Athena users in other schools and attending these webinars. And, you know, Frank as well, he's my line manager. He just always reply to me, you know, and I might get onto him on a Tuesday, and then I away with a team or correcting exam papers and get back to him on a Thursday, and just no problem. 5 minutes later, he's back to me. So those kind of sports are excellent. It's a real positive of the Athena model. You know, you've the software program, but also the sport is huge then as well.
Brilliant. Great to hear. That's supposed to be the negative part, Adrian. Máirín, what about you? What have you found most challenging about the role?
Yeah, I suppose just kind of containing it. Like there's so many uses for it, and there's so many different directions you could go. So just kind of, you know, I've learned to say, okay, I can only do my best, and trying to get through as much as I can in the time that I have. So yeah, that I think in terms of getting teachers to use it, just getting them to log in was the biggest challenge. I think for most teachers, once they logged in, they were impressed by it, you know, or could see the benefit of it. So what we actually during our staff meeting brought all the student Chromebooks down and got everyone to log in during, you know, gave them time to log in, I suppose, rather than just asking them to do it in their own time. So that helped with that. I'm trying to think of other. So like what Adrian said, any little issues I've had or questions I've had, the support has been unbelievable. You know, it's one of the reasons I was willing to come on and talk to you here today, is just to give back a little bit, because like Adrian said, you know, you email it and you get a reply nearly straight away and super helpful and everything. So that's been a massive help too. Yeah.
Brilliant. No, that's great to hear. Thanks a million. So look, 2 final questions. Firstly, for, you know, school management who have this in their school and they're trying to choose who they should put into this role, like what type of person do you think this suits? You know, what type of teacher? And like, yeah, like I knew I've already kind of asked you, do you think they need to be of maths background? But yeah, anything else on it, Adrian? What do you think?
I'd probably say, you know, there is, you know, I was mentioning that blank canvas, like some people can kind of be up for that, starting a new project, you know, and having that creativity side of it. So somebody who's kind of maybe looking for that, something new and creative, you know, there can be repetition in teaching, and that's a real new project you can go after. But I'd also, you know, a lot of posts are coming up these days because of post reviews. You know, they're supposed to happen every 2 years. I know they don't happen that often, but you know, they're quite regular at the same time. So you've a lot of posts that are coming up at the same time, and a lot of candidates for the post. So I'd have a chat to the candidates, see, you know, I'd explain it's a bit daunting, but you know, it is something that, you know, you could really get your hands around and have a project that you can implement change in the school. And you know, I think there would be really people up for it. But like, there's other people then who just wouldn't like it at all. You know, like, again, I've loads of colleagues here who go, Jesus, that's not for me at all. You know, like, it's just not their thing. There's no problem. Like, it's just getting trying to match it with somebody who would suit. You know, I suppose the extreme example here is like I've a colleague there, and he's in his last year before retirement. And, you know, ICT isn't really his thing, and like he'd have a panic attack if he was given Athena. You know, so you're just trying to have a chat to people, see who would suit, and you know, hopefully they'll be involved in the decision to take it up, and then they'll really run with it.
Yeah, brilliant. And Máirín, anything to add to that?
I suppose just somebody who's interested in it, maybe somebody who's using it in their classroom, who's, you know, who sees the value in it and can share that with staff. Yeah, someone persistent, I think, you know, and enthusiastic is key. And then actually what Martina has done now is that all the assistant year heads have, as part of their role, you know, when they get a post, it's assistant year head and academic tracking. So it's just been incorporated into the assistant year head role, which is great, to kind of distribute the leadership.
Yeah, very good. And I suppose final question then, any advice for a school? How I know you have given a lot of advice, but you know, a final word on an advice for a school who are in the process of bringing this in, or sorry, the person that, you know, the post holder who's just getting started with the role more. Máirín, I'll stick with you.
Yeah, well, reach out to people who are already doing it to get ideas, because when you talk to people, everyone will be doing it slightly differently. And I've gotten so much just from listening to Adrian and to the previous webinar as well. Ask for help from Athena. You know, like, you guys are really, really supportive. Per Frank, I'd say his head was wrecked with me at the start. I asked so many questions and he did a video chat with me. We must have spent about an hour going through different things, and that was at the stage when I was, you know, had the maths head on. I'd say I was tormenting the poor man. But yeah, start small as well. I think, like, if I was doing it again, I might start with 1 year group and kind of try and form what it is that I want to do with 1 year group. But I'd add to a caveat there that you might do things slightly differently with different year groups. Like, it's quite different with a second year group than it is with a 6-year group, you know. So I suppose my last little piece of advice would be keep an open mind. Like, it's what I'm doing now has changed a lot to what I thought I would be doing last April. So just be flexible and keep an open mind and kind of grow with the role, I suppose.
Brilliant, no, great advice. And Adrian, what about you?
I just agree with everything Máirín said there. You know, I would just take it slow. I'd kind of attend the training at the start. I'd try go to the webinars. Maybe that local group as well could be helpful, you know, just to bounce ideas off things that might be going on in other schools. So that can be helpful. And I know our school was different with this, but the core group of teachers was brilliant for us because, you know, it's good they found a positive as well, but they can really help get it out into the broader school as well. So it's excellent. And maybe as well, you know, like, you're going to be working with people, so gradually get it out to don't be afraid of getting the other stakeholders involved. Like, we've got the parents kind of, you know, involved as well, and you know, they're really positive about it. And when the management get feedback on it, you know, they like it. So just, you know, gradually, like Máirín said, bringing it out to the whole school.
Brilliant, thanks. Okay, we're going to finish up there, and thank you both. That has been so helpful, I think, for any school bringing it in or even using it, who've been using it for years. I think that advice is going to be so helpful, and we really appreciate your contribution. Just a few things to mention before we finish. The super user workshops, we've them all scheduled now for after Christmas, so if anyone wants to sign up for any, and there is one next Tuesday, and you can still sign up for that, and you'll get to meet Máirín. You won't be leading it or anything, don't worry, Máirín. And then we're going to be doing one more of these webinars in December, and we'll be sharing that as well. All of this information kind of goes out in our newsletter, so if you're not on that yet, do get at it. Yeah, and again, thanks again to Adrian and Máirín. Like, the main advice I give to all the schools starting is to find a really good post holder to lead it, and like, you definitely have that in both your schools. So well done, and thanks so much. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for the time.
Thanks a million. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Hi guys, thanks a million.